Okay. We're live on YouTube, so
Are you recording it also?
yeah, it's YouTube will record it, so yeah.
Okay, so we're at quorum. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from September 15th?
And I guess a motion to approve them.
I'll second.
All in favor of approving the September 15th meeting minutes, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, it passed. Now we have a public hearing, so you want to just get over this?
Mr. Chair, I'm looking at the online agenda, and it has approval of minutes of the January 26th meeting.
Ah, okay,
Uh,
maybe that's a little hiccup, but
When was our last meeting?
September, would have been September 15th.
Did we have to, we didn't have one that was canceled, did we?
No.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong agenda. I'm looking at the CDA's agenda.
Ah,
I have the wrong initials in my search for email
More
there.
approvals than
Never
that.
mind. Yeah, I was just pulling up the online one, so I pulled the wrong one. Never mind. Back to work.
Okay,
okay, so we'll, first item is for a public hearing. We want to,
does it read anything for that, or is it?
yeah, maybe just we'll call the public hearing to order and maybe read the agenda item.
Okay, we'll call the public hearing to order. It's for the fiscal year 2022 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report for the Community Development Block Grant Program. Is there anybody wishing to address the committee? I didn't see anybody online, is there?
Yeah, no, we've got, one online is indicated an issue. Okay. Should I start our public hearing? We'll just kick it off.
Sure.
Okay. So, right here. Just before we begin, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Steve Scher. I'm the manager of planning and zoning. I work not only in planning and zoning, but also with CDBG and so on. And to my left here is Danielle Carrington. Danielle started with us recently, and
Hello, everyone. I work with the housing department. I oversee that, as well as CDBG funds and neighborhood association. I also work in conjunction with Steve in Office of Development.
so Danielle's the new face of community development with her senior planner role and CDBG neighborhoods and so on. So we're very excited to have her. And so,
Welcome aboard.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
So just to sort of recap, I mean, Community Development Block Grant, that's part of our public hearing tonight, aligns with our city's strategic vision. So when we're doing these things, we should always look at the bigger picture, our city's strategic vision, and in terms of the different focuses within our strategic plan, neighborhood-based involvement, developing opportunities for the creation of jobs and retention of existing jobs, destination, and creating new places, the city being really focused on economic development, job growth, our branding, financial incentives for homeowners and small businesses alike, all lines up with the purpose of Community Development Block Grant and the national objective. So, and then from a financial standpoint, again, just sort of providing grant resources, federal grant resources being CDBG as one of those opportunities for improving our organizational excellence and reducing impacts to the city and improving its as a destination. Some of the overarching points of the CDBG program need to be in alignment with our 5-year consolidated plan. They're listed here 1 through 6, but again, just sort of redeveloping abandoned and underutilized industrial sites, eliminating slum and blighting influences, addressing the needs of low to moderate income persons and neighborhoods, expanding economic opportunities within the city, and creating decent and affordable housing and then providing social services and outreach programs. And CDBG offers that as public services. Some basics, you'll probably hear us talk throughout the presentation here with the different groups that we have. There's administrative category and public service category, a slow and blight category. There's certain percentages that we're required to abide by. Of our total grant allocation, we can't spend more than 20% on administrative costs or items. We can't spend more than 15% of our total budget on public services. When we say we're going to help low to moderate income areas or people, it has to benefit more than 51% or greater to be eligible. And then we need to assist greater than 70% of the overall population, low to moderate income population. And within the slum and blight category, we shouldn't be doing more than 30% of our total budget. So those are just some general rules with federal funds. Again, just sort of talking about area benefits versus benefits directly to people. We have an activity that serves West Dallas residents of an area that is primarily residential, and where 51% of the residents are low and moderate income is an area benefit. Limited clientele is another HUD term, but it's basically people that are at or above. We need to help people that are 51% of the beneficiaries need to be low to moderate income. And we talk about low income. There's a chart here that HUD puts out pretty much every year. This basically sort of defines the different levels of low to moderate income. If you're 51 to 80% of the county median income, one person, this is the limit, two
That's
people.
the low income limit, 52K a year.
Yeah, that's what it's indicated. So, yeah. So
$26 an hour.
Yeah. In terms of low to moderate income areas within the city, these are the areas, the census tracts, and within that census tract, there's a smaller geographical area called a block group. So for instance, in census tract 1, over here on the east northeast side of the city, you can see that 3 of the 4 block groups, block group 2, 3, and 4, are considered to have a low to moderate income population. Whereas this first block group that's not highlighted, it's only at 39% low to moderate income persons, whereas the other 3 are at or above the 51% threshold. So this is one map. The other map that we use, just a closer look at that. The other map that we use within block grant is this larger map that more areas are highlighted, and this is the aggregate. So more or less the average of all block groups. Again, just sort of taking a look at that first census tract as an example. While this first block group by itself wasn't at or above 51% LMI, it was at 39%. When you average it within that overall, then you're at the 51%. So this becomes an eligible area. The same, so goes for the rest of the areas within the city.
And if we average the city overall, then the whole city, but the rules don't work that way, right?
Right. Yeah. So we're looking at each census tract, and yeah. So you can see there. This area is the greatest benefit where we can have the largest service area and most impact. HUD still does want applicants to sort of focus in on certain geographic areas, but for certain things, it does allow us to expand the impact of CDBG and the grant funding throughout the city, the majority of it.
So you use that map to qualify areas for development with using CDBG funds.
Correct.
What if you do something on the edge of one of the areas, like a park or something like that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. That's, I guess we got Parkway here, but you could still, you could still do work like in the 5th district in some of these, block group 1 and block group, I think this is 5 or something here, but you could still do work there. These areas here would not be eligible, nor would these, but so it does allow for, I think it's just a greater impact.
But you don't have to show that the users of whatever it is because they may spill over into
Yeah,
a non-qualifying area?
It depends. So if if we're gonna do some sort of, like, say we were gonna give away smoke detectors or something like that, or ring cameras, you'd have to income qualify people. So I mean, within these
The individual.
The
individual low and
individuals,
moderate
okay,
on a private
yeah.
property. So it gets a little different when you're working in public right of way or something, and you can see, you can really do a lot of impact. You're putting up cameras or, new lights or something like that in these areas, so.
So well, there might be a point where you could plant trees on one side of the street, but not the other.
Yeah, maybe,
Because the
yeah,
line,
yeah.
there is a line.
Yeah.
But if the shade goes.
Okay, moving on.
Moving
All right, so this public hearing has been published twice in the official paper. We've had a public comment period. Our allocation is just over $1.5 million. And that's for fiscal year 2022. We've received 25 applications, and we're gonna sort of recap our performance. So in this case, we're not looking ahead. In this case, we're looking behind at our performance for 2022 funding. So I don't know if you recall, but we initially received an estimate of $1,572,775 from HUD, and then but the actual award, that came to us was a little bit less, about $46,000 less. So when we estimate, I guess in this case we overestimated, and what HUD actually allocated to us was about almost $50,000 less, and that's typical. Sometimes it's a little bit more. For 2023, we're going to decide later, we're actually going to get another $40,000. So for the future 23 fiscal year. So it just ebbs and flows based on, I think the federal government, their situation and what they, the current project projections at the time. These are the categories, the funding categories that are, we break each of this, the $1.5 million into. In administrative, again, not over the 20%, public services not over the 15%, housing rehab projects, economic development projects, and then there's public facility projects. These last three don't have caps. So now we get into the actual performance of each of these, and in terms of administrative summary, rolling out, in terms of staff's admin costs to sort of deliver these programs across the board throughout all those service categories. But in terms of administrative costs, we were budgeted for $300,000 in 2022, and to date we've spent about $204,000, and so we've got still have a surplus of $95,000 left over. Not all that money. I mean, we weren't fully staffed back in 2022. It was late in the year when Danielle came on board, and we've still been doing some other things that are sort of lending itself to why we haven't spent all this. So it's just maybe one part of the reason. In terms of fair housing, in terms of rolling out our fair housing poster contest, while we didn't do a fair housing poster contest in 2022, we did post the prior year's winner on a billboard on 59th and Burnham. That's kind of where it is, above one of the storefronts there. And in 2023, we're going to be doing a poster contest with the school district, and getting people's art into us, and then there's going to be a winner selected, and that winner or winners will be receive probably some art in the city somewhere. We're thinking about doing a wrap on a utility box or something like that to display the art. So that's a future endeavor. But we have had a few housing complaints received to date. 2 people, 3 complaints. Those were dealt with. We have a fair housing board that met and determined that there was no finding of discrimination and there's no further investigation needed or hearing required. So if the board were to determine that there was a finding of discrimination or some other problem, they could certainly hold that hearing, and it'd be a further in-depth research into what's happening.
Was it with one property, one person, or was it very different?
There were 2 different people, and then there was one person with 2 complaints, and it was to do with I think specifics are escaping me, but I think it was something to do with applying for a voucher for, through our housing office. And they were something with the Autumn Glen Apartments and another at the Supreme Apartments.
Okay,
Is what comes to mind, yeah. But in both cases, it was just determined that not to be, a case of discrimination. It was just something else, miscommunication or something like that, so. Now we go into the public service category, and our community service officer, this is a person that there's a city department, the police department, delivers this program, and they basically try to resolve conflicts, help people feel safer. They work within, in this case, our Liberty Heights area, but definitely within low to moderate income areas. Just really trying to build partnerships and which helps promote the police department and recognizable faces that you see, and if you have a problem, they're certainly there to help out within our neighborhoods and our outreach. So they've served people, about 5,300 people, and just sort of the categories here. These are just project activity codes, the HUD matrix code, our funding year. And then what we started with, what was approved for funding was $40,000, and year to date, they've spent $40,000 to date. So they've expended their entire budget. Graffiti, and again, police department, a couple of retired officers run this program, and they're about all about moving all over the city and cleaning up those areas. They've spent their money. I don't know if there's any, if you guys have questions along the way, feel free to just jump in. Some of these are pretty straightforward where they've spent all their money. The ARIS is a Frail Elderly Home Services Group. They're a private nonprofit, and I know Danielle and I went. Danielle had a great idea when she started. It's like, why don't we go out and, what is ARIS? She had a great idea to sort of start, let's go on a tour, let's go visit their facilities, see what they do, learn more about them. And in this case, I think we've been at Greendale.
So one of the initiatives that we wanted to start for the CDBG program, specifically dealing with our public service organizations, was to be able to make that connection of what the work they were actually doing. We receive the applications every year. We put out the subrecipient contracts, but we want to know what are they doing and how are they actually touching the community. So our initiative was to visit each one, take us on a tour. What are they doing? Specifically for ARIS, we got a chance to sit down with some of their administrators, and basically we got those stories of how they're touching lives, individuals and families, how they're providing volunteer services. So how all of these services connect to the community members here in West Dallas.
And then gang prevention, and they didn't spend all their money. There is a, I guess this is the response, so when this happens, I guess they don't spend all their 22 budget, you kind of ask the question, well, why not? So, these 3 bullet points here, you can see their accomplishments. They've done a lot. They've run over 600 drug investigations in low and moderate areas, 22 of which they were all reviewed by one of the captains, and then which in turn led to investigations and other follow up and solving some crimes. So the 3 points here are kind of why it's sort of it is a demand-based thing, and it varies year to year. In some cases, they don't always spend all their money. Here they're saying that the narcotics tips and investigations presented to our special investigations unit are unpredictable, vary from year to year, beyond the control of investigators. They're saying large-scale gang narcotics investigation do require assistance of a confidential informant to obtain enough probable cause. In some cases, informants are willing or unwilling to assist, and it varies from year to year. And then so that does impact, I guess, the bottom line. Many of our, the major drug cases have historically originated from drug overdose deaths. So in other words, our investigators respond to a report of heroin overdose death, which ultimately leads them to the drug supplier. The increased availability of Narcan has saved countless lives, greatly reducing the number of overdose deaths. So maybe fewer investigations as a result.
Does that mean that when there's a fatality, they're more likely to find a supplier?
That's how I'm.
And now with Narcan, the guy, whether it was in the past, it was the victims' friends or family stepping up. But since there hasn't been a fatality, we're getting fewer investigations.
I think it could also mean that someone personally, maybe not the EMS or fire department is administering the Narcan. I think in some cases, people may actually have
People have their own
Narcan.
Narcan, so
And they're
it's all over the radar, we don't even know about it.
Yeah, it's kind of like a
Oh,
self-service,
okay.
we're just taking care of
Oh,
ourselves,
okay.
and I call 911.
Okay,
So I think
yeah, I
that's
guess
kind of
that,
where it's
yeah, I know
going.
Narcan's available now
Yeah.
publicly, so, well, I
So,
guess people
yeah.
are dying, so.
Right. The Liberty Heights Pool Program, and Shelley of the Rec Department runs this, her and her team, and they've spent their $10,000. Shelley, I know you're on the line. If you have anything you want to provide any input here, feel free.
I mean, yeah, pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, I mean, our costs tend to stay the same because that pool hours are pretty fixed from summer to summer. Yeah, this year we didn't serve as many people as in past, but didn't mean the costs of having people there or to run the program weren't there.
True, yeah. Thank you, Shelley. Healthy homes, in this situation, there's money left over, a remaining balance of $10,000. The fire department is, this was a project that started out in our health department and was transferred over to fire department to install fire detectors and smoke alarms and so on, these combination units. They haven't spent that money, and we're actually working with them now on spending this, whether it's, so they have $10,000 in 22 money, and then I think there's another 10,000 in 2023 money. They're gearing up to spend the money in 2023 under that fiscal budget. So we think that this dollar amount here could go back into the bottom line, the balance, and then be reallocated to another program such as public facilities or something along that line. We have to be careful that we don't, if we were to put it into we wanted to just sort of continue it forward, the department goes up and buys $20,000 worth of, we just have to be careful that we're not exceeding that 15% cap in 2023, which I think we probably would be, because I don't know if you recall back to September, I think we were right at that. We were very competitive in the public services, and we historically are. So we're always at that 15%. And we always have more applications than we have money in the public service category. So in this case, I think we'd recommend that this $10,000 from 22 go into another, go to the bottom line, the overall balance into the pool of money, but then be reallocated to a public facility. The WISH program is counseling, and it's administered by our police department, and they have spent all their money. Feel free to stop me if you want to round back on any of these. And then WRTP Big Step, the goal of 35 people, they actually achieved a little bit more, and they placed at least 15, maybe 16 people into the construction and manufacturing employment area, actually one person outside that industry. They do frequently do job fairs within West Dallas at Nathan Hale and Dot Key. I'm sorry, at West Dallas Central and at Dot Key School. So they are just sort of workforce development, skills training type of organization. I know Danielle, we're going to meet with them possibly next week for a little tour. So, homeless outreach. Danielle, I'll have you explain this one, won't you?
Well, we had an opportunity to go out with Milwaukee County Homeless Outreach on one of their morning rides, which probably started about 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. where we went around to different parts of the city, also including Milwaukee County as well, and just did that initial touch base with those individuals, checking up on the bridges, things of that nature. And what they do is they do kind of a verbal assessment of what's going on with them, like if there's any substance abuse happening, how long have they been out there, are they having any type of illness, are they having any mental illness? So they do that mental assessment, and then they pose the question to them, do you want to come inside? Because you know that when you're dealing with homeless families or individuals, they might be okay staying outside. It could be something, there are underlying issues going on if someone is deemed homeless. What they do is do that intake right there. They may not get them that day, or if that shift changes, they have a follow-up process that they go through with these individuals to make sure. And we also partner with Milwaukee County in their offices to work with individuals to get permanent housing through our HCD program. So a lot of the public service organizations, it's all connected in the work that we do.
Do you have an estimate how many are actually homeless in the West Dallas area? Because 40 were served, but how many?
Specifically for the West Dallas area, they didn't have exact numbers. They have more areas in the surrounding Milwaukee area, but one of their targeted places was the farmers market. If they know that someone is out there, they make contact, but with the homeless population, they know the places where they can actually move around. So they make that initial contact, and then they keep track of those individuals within their internal system, and then refer them to the HMIS systems, the homeless management information system, to keep track of those individuals.
What time of year did you guys do this?
Winter time.
Yeah, what was it? Was it November? I think it was November.
November,
Yeah, it was cold, cold
It
mornings.
was cold.
And do we know, does the number go up and down seasonally?
Yes, because some of the individuals go inside when it's cold. They utilize the shelters, but when it gets warm, they go back outside. So this summer, we're going to be going to some of the more large encampments.
Do you know, do they assess, especially when you mentioned mental illnesses, higher risk mental illness versus, like more aggressiveness? Do they measure any of that?
Right, so when they make that initial contact, the first thing that they're trying to do is to see if the individuals want to be able to accept help. They are the initial contact. So once they do, if they decided they want to become in that program, they do have mental health professionals that assess them on the different tiers of mental illness that they may have, because we know that sometimes that can be dangerous. So it's up to the individual, but they provide the services that they can, because we can't force those services on individuals.
One more quick question. When you do the contact, or they do the contact, do they have access to an online database? So if they get a person's name, they get a quick history on them, or is it all just paper and pencil on this?
So they keep like a running database that is theirs internal for Milwaukee County, which keeps that information. But once they goes into that HMIS system, that's where that more detailed information will go. So if they're trying to be referred to.
So when they're on location, they might, as soon as they get a individual's name, they might be able to pull up their history and understand what level of care they may need.
Right, or they may be someone who's not in their system at all, so they'll be introduced to it, so yes.
One more question.
Yes.
Do you know, do they provide anything when you're doing the visits for them, food?
Yes, so they have kind of like care packages. They may ask them, do they need anything? It may be something like toiletry, socks, snack food. It wasn't more like meal prep or anything like that, because they're making that quick touch base, and then the vehicle capacity as well, just thinking about those type of things, but they do try to give them those basic things that they need. But it can also be very emotional, because we all have homes and roofs over our head. When you're coming in contact, it gives you that empathy and connect to that human nature.
Thanks, Daniel. So they have some money remaining balance, and I recall, I think there was an issue where they came into possibly some other funding. There were some staffing issues that one of the reasons they were short, but then they also came into some COVID money that they used first. And so there was staffing plus some additional grant sources, which sort of resulted in a little bit of a balance remaining. So that being said, I think it is, an important initiative, and just something to continue to fund, I guess, if I were to advocate, because I'm advocating for it.
That makes sense.
Safe and supported substance abuse. This is run through our one of our posters through our police department. They've helped a number of 46 low and moderate clientele. So these are the specific people that have to be sort of verified as low to moderate income. And so they did 46 LMC, but then additionally, I guess there were some additional adults that they engaged their services with, number of youth, and then some additional outreach in terms of informational with some other social programs that they run with making sure guns are safely stored, prescriptions are safely stored, just an informational thing. So they have spent their money. I forgot about this. The vermin abatement, yeah, so I forgot about that slide. So the vermin abatement, the health department has been very active over the past year and really setting up not only baiting stations, working with, I believe it's Batsner Pest Management, but doing quite a bit of outreach. They have a rat tracker. You can actually report rat sightings via the health department landing page. So they are working within low to moderate income areas and 5 different neighborhoods throughout the city. One, believe it or not, I think it's right around 96th in Oklahoma, where I didn't think there were rats up there, but I mean, it's amazing where rats show up. So, but it's something that I think the health department is trying to wrap its head around, and I think they have. But I would expect to see continued positive results through that. And I think the health department didn't use the remaining balance here. I think there was, I think they had some other, I think the cost came in lower than expected. So when they applied for the funding, they applied for 16,000. The costs actually for administering what they did came in lower than expected. So I guess they over budgeted, which I guess that's a good problem to have in this situation. But so, this money, I mean, we'd be taking a look at, funding their needs in the future as well. It is, rats happen. It's just something that, as a city, and we're going to have to deal with. And a big part of it's going to be education, educating people how to keep their yards clean, how to live and within your neighborhood to avoid these pesky little critters. So. The neighborhood cleanup. This was a new program in 2022 where we funded it with about $4,100. And Danielle's been working with several neighborhood groups, not only trying to expand and grow new neighborhood groups, but with our existing 6 or so. And this was really intended to sort of buy some things for all neighborhood groups, not just specifically any one neighborhood group, but for all neighborhood groups to use. So we purchased like a pop-up tent, coffee urns, and beverage coolers, folding tables,
Reflective vests.
Reflective vests, the little garbage picker uppers. So just to sort of help, grease the wheels and help, roll out these spring cleanups anytime of year cleanups throughout the community. So if any neighborhood organizations out there want to use this stuff, it's available. It's been purchased, and I think we have most of it in stock right now. So.
Trying to find a good place.
Yeah, I was gonna say, where does it live?
Right.
We wanted to store it at Liberty Heights Park, but I think there's an issue with something there. So we're looking at.
We'll carve out
other
the spot and
opportunities. Yeah. Yeah. Rehab and loan management. There's three programs under this. There's just the general administration of that program, which has spent all the money. And there's 2 others where it's actually the rehab money going to single family homeowners that are low to moderate income, or duplex property owners that are low to moderate income. So in both of these cases, I mean, in this case, we have remaining balances in each of these situations. However, there is this money here is going to get spent and then some, I think so. And then there's actually commitments that we have that we're currently working with that you will see a lower number here come in as those commitments come true. When this was funded in 2022, with HUD, there's always this lag where you apply for money, then you wait, and then HUD finally funds you later on in the end of the year. Well, in November, not too many people are doing new roofs and home improvements on the exterior of the building and what have you. They wait until spring. So here we are, we're approaching spring, and Rob upstairs in our housing office, who runs this, administers this, has got a queue of people lined up to spend down this balance. It just hasn't hit the books yet. Loans haven't closed and so on. So that will change. The other one, the housing rehab multi-unit program, duplex program, Rob was actually working with one qualified homeowner of a duplex property was low to moderate income. However, when the title came back, there were judgments against the property and the deal blew up. So
So you never purchased the property?
he owned the property, but then there was some, I think some lack of payment on other things that sort of killed that deal, unfortunately. So this money could be reallocated and maybe moved up to here, because there is definite demand in this row 15 category.
So that's not necessarily home, owner occupied duplexes.
It has to be owner occupied, and that's another challenge. to
Well, I
the
understand
program.
single families,
Yeah.
but the duplexes also are.
Duplex also have to be
Good,
owner
because
occupied, yeah.
we're trying to, that's one of the things we're trying to encourage is owner occupied rental properties. And then those are both listed as loans, so they pay them back over time.
Yeah.
And that comes back as program income then?
Correct, yeah. And it's just, again, sort of the two we just talked about, so. Okay, and then we get into economic development. And I think Patrick might still be on the line. And we've got, in terms of the loan delivery program, the $212,000 balance. Again, this is sort of a similar situation where there are things happening, things are there in the queue that are going to get spent. Just hasn't, again, hit the books yet. In terms of WIBIC, the Wisconsin Women's Business Initiative, they have spent all their money. They do micro enterprise loan assistance and job training at small business, retaining jobs, creating jobs of low to moderate income people. They have routinely always spend their money yes, in a timely manner. So we appreciate that. Thank you. And then the commercial facade improvement program, another economic development program, which is again sort of showing a remaining balance here, but there are two loans right now that are active. They're going to spend down. They're committed for $60,000. So this is actually a $10,000 balance right now, and then there's additional in the queue that will spend that down even further. So 2022 fiscal year, I see these two numbers changing and being drawn down considerably, despite what the actual balance sheet shows here right now. Just sort of the detail on WIBIC and our commercial facade. These are the two projects of commitments that we have right now. The old Fratelli's on 62nd and Lincoln, and then this is a working with a Twisted Plants to fund, do some commercial facade and clean that property up. And then also, I think the Deco downtown West Dallas was another beneficiary of commercial facade and economic development loans. And then the property here is 5801 National.
That looks really nice.
Yep, it's underway. So a couple from bought the building and they're moving in upstairs. We're renovating this tremendously, and then going to be, creating a commercial space down below. And then we get into public facilities. The overview of this is going to be your street beautification projects run by our forestry, DPW, exterior property maintenance code, which is run by our code enforcement department. And then McKinley Park improvement is lagging, but I mean, McKinley Park is a privately owned park right now, owned by Cobalt Partners, and Cobalt has a plan to, develop the park. We're going to create a linear park, and then there's also going to be apartments on that same block, and there's going to be some changes there, and it hasn't happened yet. They're a little slow on the uptake. I think they're working at some other projects, but
I think COVID got a lot to do with that.
COVID and inflation, and now rates being what they are, they sort of paused some
Softening
things.
of the office market too.
The neighborhood lighting program is something where we're going to be installing lights on the east end of the city, around Liberty Heights in general, just to sort of fill in some gaps and dark areas, brighten them up. And there's an invoice right now that's going through the system for about $15,000, which will 50 lights and to fill in some gaps on the east end of the city. In addition, there's talk about maybe using the remaining balance then, if difference between $15,000 and $38,000, that $20 or so thousand on maybe buying some cameras
I was gonna say,
to install.
we've got some
Right away areas.
street cameras out there that
Yeah.
are pretty old tech or just
Yeah.
wearing out. It could use a freshening.
So but those are the topic of how we can potentially spend that. And this one is just sort of more of a, I don't want to say it's out of our control, but it's something that we're kind of, we need to really sort of find out where the developers are at. I mean, I know economic development has really been working with Cobalt more so than Danielle or I have, but I mean, it is something that they are still looking at doing those apartments, and with those apartments, you then see those park improvements. That's where this money would get utilized. Street beautification, our forestry department's doing a fantastic job, and then with exterior maintenance, they've done a numerous amount of inspections throughout the city within those aggregate, areas. I think they did focus in on certain specific areas in 2022, but their inspections result in follow-ups, and then it takes staff time and the number of cases that don't always get solved, and just with a notice and order, sometimes they have to go to court. It just drags out the process, increases the cost, but so it does add up. I mean, they have a certain amount of funding here, which they have spent on all of that inspections to going to court and so on. But it is a positive program. It does result in reducing the slum and blight influences throughout our city, and good neighborhoods become a good future for the city. These are the areas that we're looking at. So that ends our public hearing. I don't know if there's any questions on any of that at this point. And before we jump into our next matter. Okay, do we have a quorum, so should we vote on the
Let's see, there's nominations first.
I think Steve's been doing a great job nominating to be chairman again, unless we have term limits or anything like that, no? Wait a minute, is there an age limit?
Is there, I mean, I guess, and with the end of the public hearing on number 2, I guess I should have waited to show Steve's picture up there, but I mean,
Do we need to?
I think it might be good just to have a motion and a second, are we unanimous? Do we agree with, I guess, the?
I'll move agreement with the review of the 2020, with the caper for 2022.
Thank you, Marty.
Second.
Thank you, Chris.
Is there any other discussion? Then all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Thank you.
Now onto the real one.
Now, you elect the chairperson.
I nominate Steve to be chairman again, if he's willing to accept the responsibility.
It's not a very difficult.
Give me a second, I can
Yeah.
second.
Yeah,
Okay,
I see.
Tasha seconds. Okay. All right.
Any other nominations? All right, all in favor?
Approve this message.
Right.
Okay. Agenda item 4 is, well, I guess this is our recommendation. So I guess why don't we formally,
I'll move to approve the recommendation for fiscal year 2022 to go to the council,
thank you.
the action plan.
And then our second was Grace, you had,
Yes.
is it you still
Yes.
second? Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, then all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Anyone opposed?
Okay. The next item is the report on CDBG COVID 1, 2, and 3 funds.
As long as there isn't 4, 5, and 6 funds.
Right. So these have been,
Maybe move on.
these funds have been really usefully rolled out, I guess, during COVID, and we have some money to spend yet in the CDBG, the COVID 1 fund. There's a balance of $343,000. Just today, there's an invoice going through to drop that down another $90,000. We need to spend that. The rest of it, though, at least 80% of that, I think it's by September. Otherwise, HUD takes it back and it goes over to Ukraine or something like that. But
Nothing against the Ukraine.
right. So yeah, I mean,
What are the kinds of
that's
things-
literally what HUD said. I mean,
Yeah,
that's,
I understand that. I
Department,
understand
yeah,
that. It goes back to the blue hole.
Yeah.
So what are the kinds of things that this COVID money? What has it been spent out of the past, and what are we anticipating?
Sure.
The run balance of that thing.
Sure. So with the, I guess the COVID one balance, here's the breakdown of how it's been spent to date. You know, administration, the health department has an awareness program, and we originally thought about doing a food meal delivery program. That was we were told by HUD that we can't be giving away food vouchers, because if you give away a food voucher to a person in need, you know, it's well intended, but that person may decide, you know what, I want to sell it to you, and to somebody that, you know, doesn't need it. So that was struck, and health department is sort of taking this money. Then it's been moved up to here, and they're going to be administering that. The community advocates is also spending their money. This is actually reduced now by another $90,000, or will be soon. It's in the
That's like
process.
Street Angels.
Community Advocates is a nonprofit organization, and they help with homelessness, right? Preventing homelessness, and advocates for people that are homeless or nearing homelessness or at risk of being homeless, and just sort of a resource for them. You know, call this number, somebody will pick up the phone and, you know, find a resource, some help for you. And then the Restart and WIBIC are both designed. Restart's a local program and economic development loan assistance to help.
So ED is
Economic development, yeah, to help people with places like, you know, Rapinas, for instance. Rapinas, Greeby's, Holiday Inn Express were recipients of that type of assistance during COVID. You know, while grocery stores typically did pretty good during COVID, they didn't always retain all their employees. In the case of Rapinas, though, she continued to perform, you know, despite increased cost of her cost to put groceries on the shelves for people who paid more too. She kept everybody employed in that organization. She didn't lay anybody off. So there was, you know, stresses like that Rapinas was dealt and that they had to deal with. The Holiday Inn Express opened during COVID, and they were sent to blow just prior to COVID, I think, with the Democratic convention, you know, not happening. And then they opened their hotel during COVID, and they weren't able to get certain assistance from the federal government. So that's where this program kicked in and sort of helped bridge that gap and keep them afloat. Greeby's lost 30% of its sales during COVID. And so again, this is sort of that helping that, you know, keep them going during the time of the pandemic. And WIBIC, is their mission goes, they're again a small business advocate, helping small businesses with grants, providing and creating low to moderate income jobs, and retaining those jobs for people. So that's, you know, they were a recipient as well. I think it's sort of
Covered it
all here, but I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's sort of, maybe this column here might help a little bit. But I mean, some of the comments on these things with the health awareness program, they purchased some computer software. In terms of community advocates, you know, they help 78 or so non-duplicated people, and the average assistance was almost $1,400. In terms of the Restart assistance, there were 3 rounds of that. The first couple of rounds were about $5,000 average grant. The third round was about a $4,000 grant. And then WIBIC was about a $5,000 grant, and then where they helped about 11 businesses create 11 jobs. You can see the job creation too here for this Restart. You know, it's impactful. It kept people employed, created or retained jobs. So it's.
These were almost exclusively small, locally owned businesses.
Yes, yeah. Just sort of another summary in terms of, well, this is COVID too. They spent all their money, but you can see the benefit and the accomplishments here of creating the jobs. Economic development assistance for COVID-3, spent all the money, and the performance of, you know, how many were funded, how many jobs were created. So that brings us to 2023. There are no further questions on number 5. Looking ahead to 2023, here's where we're at for 22, a little over 1.5 million. We had estimated that we're going to get an award of a little over 1.4 million, and we did. I mean, they actually awarded us on November 18th, 2022, my birthday. They awarded us 1.4 million.
Hey, there you go.
Hey, happy birthday.
There's a surplus somewhere.
Get to work. Yeah. So, but then more recently, I mean, I think it was just, for the end of February, we were told we're gonna get another $40,000. So that brings us up really a little bit more than what we received last year, which is good. Again, sort of those same caps we have to stay in touch with, the 20% admin, not more than 15% of that for public services, and not more than 30% for slum and blight. So it's those as sort of the look ahead. And we don't have this money in the bank. You know, this is what we expect to get, but HUD hasn't actually.
The check will be here in November.
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
it'll be later on. Yeah, but certainly doesn't prohibit anyone, from spending the 2023 money that they've been awarded last, September. They can certainly go out and spend that money, and it's all based on a reimbursement basis. We'll be sending out, sub-grantee agreements for, the groups to sort of fill in on how they spent their money and so on. But it's certainly available for the organizations and groups that we just talked about to use.
And I also think that it's important to talk about with the subrecipient contracts is that when we receive this budget, when we have to make those changes, we also have to make those changes to subrecipient agreements, because in their initial applications, they may apply for a certain amount. And by that time that we actually find out how much money we get, we have to move things around to make sure that we're making sure everyone gets what they're asking for. So it may not be exactly what you want. And also, we're also trying to solicit new organizations that we can bring in, because we know that we've had organizations that have utilized CDBG funds for many, many years, but we want to open up those opportunities to other organizations as well.
We're not typically anyone's 100% source of income.
No.
Yeah, most groups have another source of some sort.
2 or 3.
Or, yeah, touch on.
Well, not the government.
Yeah. So that, I think we hit a lot of points on the agenda. If there's anything else that.
Anybody have any other questions or anything like that for Steve before we adjourn? All right, then we'll take a motion to adjourn.
Good.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and all in favor?
Aye.
We're not even asked for.
Congratulations, Mr. Chair.
Wow, we did that in less than an hour.
Yeah.
Hey, Patrick, you still on the line? Well, okay, there you go. Well, I thank everyone for being here, and as well as online. Can't do without you, so thanks.
I'm here, great job.
All right, very good. All right, we're signing off. Thanks,
All right,
everyone.
have a great evening.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.